Every day, the millionaire watched the cleaning lady take care of his mansion, until one day, he finally decided to approach her. Claire pushed open the heavy double doors of the mansion. They swung back smoothly, revealing the grand hall. Chandeliers glittered above her, their light reflecting off polished marble floors. She took a deep breath, feeling small in the vastness of the room. It was hard not to feel overwhelmed by all the luxury. Every step she took echoed slightly, reminding her she didn't belong here. She set down her cleaning supplies by the entrance. It was time to start her daily rounds. Claire had learned to move quietly, to make herself invisible in this place. She began with the hall, dusting the surfaces, wiping down the baseboards, sweeping the floor. She worked methodically, one corner to the next, her mind drifting as she moved. Her thoughts went to her son, Ethan. He was 4. She had left him with the neighbor today, as always, hoping he wouldn't be too much trouble. The neighbor, Nancy, was kind, but had her own family to worry about. Claire always felt guilty, but she had no choice. She needed the job, needed the money. Rent was late again. She felt her stomach tighten with worry. She couldn't afford to lose this place. Ethan needed somewhere stable, somewhere safe. Claire heard footsteps behind her and straightened, turning to see the head of security, Richard. He was watching her, his eyes narrow. "Don't forget the upstairs rooms today," he said, his tone clipped. She nodded. "I won't." Richard lingered, his eyes scanning her. She looked down, focusing on her cleaning rag. He was always watching her, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. It made her nervous, and she tried hard to stay out of his way. When he finally left, she exhaled, tension easing slightly. She moved to the next room, dusting the large mirrors. As she worked, her thoughts returned to Ethan's father. She hadn't thought about him in a while, but the stress of everything brought the memories back. He had left her as soon as she told him she was pregnant. She had been alone ever since, carrying everything on her own. Sometimes, it felt like the weight of it all might crush her. But she couldn't let that happen. She had to keep going for Ethan. Hours passed, and Claire moved through the rooms like clockwork, cleaning, dusting, scrubbing. By the time she finished her shift, her feet ached, and her arms felt heavy. She put away her cleaning supplies and was about to leave when she felt eyes on her. She looked up and saw William, the owner of the mansion, standing at the top of the staircase. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. She paused, unsure if she should say something or just go. He began descending the stairs, his eyes still on her. When he reached the bottom, he smiled faintly. "Long day?" he asked. She blinked, caught off guard. He had never spoken to her before, beyond a passing nod. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir." He looked at her for a moment longer, then said, "What's your name?" "Claire," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, as if committing it to memory. "Good work today, Claire. Have a safe trip home." She managed a small smile, still unsure why he was talking to her. "Thank you, sir." He turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her heart beating a little faster. She wasn't sure what to make of it. It was strange, and she felt a mixture of confusion and fear. She gathered her things quickly, wanting to leave before Richard could see her talking to William. As she walked out of the mansion and down the long driveway, she felt the weight of the day pressing down on her. Her mind was still reeling from the brief conversation. She didn't know what it meant, if it meant anything at all. Maybe he was just being polite. Maybe it was nothing. She hoped it was nothing. The last thing she needed was more attention on her. She just wanted to do her job, get paid, and go home to Ethan. The next day, Claire returned to the mansion. She felt the same weight pressing on her shoulders. the worry about Ethan and the rent. As she pushed the cleaning cart into the main hall, she saw William. He was standing by the window, staring out into the garden. He turned as she entered. "Claire," he said, his voice gentle. She froze for a second, then nodded. "Good morning, sir." He walked over, stopping a few feet away. "How's your son?" he asked, his tone casual, as if they were old friends. Claire blinked, unsure how to respond. "He's fine, sir. Thank you for asking." William nodded, his eyes studying her. "Do you have enough help with him?" She looked down, her fingers gripping the edge of the cart. "I manage, sir." He seemed like he wanted to say more, but instead he just smiled. "That's good to hear. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask." Claire forced a smile, her heart pounding. "Thank you, sir." She watched as he walked away, confusion swirling in her mind. Why was he asking about Ethan? Was he just being kind? Or was there something else? As she started her cleaning, she noticed the whispers. The other staff. They were watching her, talking amongst themselves. She felt her face heat up, the tension rising in her chest. She needed this job. She couldn't afford for anyone to think she was stepping out of line. Later that morning, Richard found her in the hallway. He blocked her path, his eyes cold. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked, his voice low. Claire frowned. "I'm just doing my job." Richard leaned in, his gaze sharp. "Stay away from William. He's not someone you should be talking to." Claire swallowed, her stomach churning. "I didn't do anything wrong." Richard gave her a hard look. "People are starting to talk. Don't make things difficult for yourself." He walked away, leaving her there, her hands trembling. She wanted to scream, to cry, but she couldn't. She had to keep her head down. She had to do her job. The rest of the day, she avoided William. She kept her eyes down, moving quickly from room to room, not wanting to draw any more attention. She felt the stares of the other staff, heard their whispers. It made her feel sick, like she was doing something wrong just by being there. Near the end of her shift, she was cleaning the study when William entered. She tensed, her heart pounding. She didn't look up, focusing on the desk she was dusting. "Claire," he said softly. She paused, then straightened. "Yes, sir." He walked closer, his eyes kind. "I noticed you seemed upset earlier. Is everything all right?" Claire clenched her hands together, her throat tight. "I'm fine, sir." He frowned. "If someone is giving you trouble—" "No," she interrupted, her voice shaky. "It's nothing really." William hesitated, then nodded. "If you're sure. Just know, you can come to me if you need help." She forced a smile, though it felt more like a grimace. "Thank you, sir." When he left, she let out a shaky breath. She didn't want his help. She didn't want anyone's help. She just wanted to do her job, go home, and take care of Ethan. She didn't need complications. That night, as she sat in her small kitchen, she thought about the day, about William, about Richard, about the whispers. She felt trapped, like she was stuck between two walls closing in on her. She wanted to quit, to find another job. But where would she go? What would she do? She had Ethan to think about. She couldn't take that kind of risk. She sighed, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. She had to stay. She had to make this work, no matter what. Claire woke up feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. She knocked on Nancy's door to drop off Ethan, but the older woman opened the door with an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Claire," Nancy said, shaking her head. "I can't watch Ethan anymore. I have my own grandchildren to take care of now." Claire nodded, her throat tightening. "I understand. Thank you for everything." She walked away, Ethan's small hand in hers, her mind racing. What now? who could she trust to take care of her son? She managed to find another neighbor, a young girl named Emily, who reluctantly agreed to watch Ethan for a few hours, just for the day. It wasn't a permanent solution. Claire felt the pressure building, her heart heavy as she made her way to work. At the mansion, she tried to focus on her duties. She needed this job. But her thoughts kept drifting to Ethan, left in the care of someone she barely knew. She had no choice, but it tore at her. She entered the hall, her eyes scanning for Richard, hoping he wouldn't notice her unease. The day dragged on, and soon enough, Richard found her. He waited until they were in the kitchen, away from everyone else. He crossed his arms, blocking her path, his expression hard. "Didn't I warn you?" he asked, his voice low but full of anger. Claire frowned, trying to stay calm. "I'm just working. William keeps talking to you. Do you think he cares about you?" Richard's eyes bore into hers, his tone mocking. "You're nothing to him. Remember your place?" Claire felt her cheeks burn. "I'm not doing anything wrong." Richard shook his head. "If you keep this up, you're going to regret it. Don't make trouble." He left her there, shaking. She wanted to cry, to scream. She was just trying to do her job, trying to survive. Why did it have to be like this? Claire was cleaning one of the upstairs rooms when she noticed William at the doorway. She straightened, her heart pounding. He stepped inside, his expression softer than usual. "Claire, are you all right?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "You seem troubled." She looked away, trying to steady her breathing. "It's nothing, sir. I just have a lot on my mind." He nodded, stepping closer. "If you need anything, please, let me know. I want to help." Claire forced a small smile, though her chest felt tight. "Thank you, sir, but I'm fine." He seemed to hesitate before nodding. "All right, but I'm serious, Claire. Don't hesitate." When he left, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She didn't know how to feel about him. Part of her wanted to trust him, to let him help. But she knew better. She had learned the hard way that trusting people could lead to heartbreak. As the day ended, Claire put away her cleaning supplies and prepared to leave. She was exhausted, her body aching, her mind heavy with worry. She hurried out of the mansion, eager to get back to Ethan. When she got home, Emily handed Ethan to her, looking relieved. "He's been fine," Emily said, her voice tired. "But I can't do this again. I have my own work." Claire nodded, holding Ethan close. "Thank you, Emily. I understand." After Emily left, Claire sank down on the couch, Ethan in her lap. He was babbling about something, his small hands waving in the air. She smiled at him, though tears stung her eyes. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't afford daycare. She couldn't afford to lose her job. She felt trapped, like the walls were closing in on her. Ethan looked up at her, his innocent eyes full of trust. He didn't know what was going on. He just knew his mother was there, that she would protect him. Claire kissed his forehead, swallowing her tears. She had to stay strong for him, no matter how hard it got. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about quitting. Maybe there was something else she could do. Maybe there was a way to make ends meet without dealing with the mansion, the whispers, and Richard's threats. But deep down, she knew she had no choice. She needed the money. Ethan needed her to keep going. The next day at work, as she finished her tasks, William appeared again. He seemed more direct this time, stepping closer. "Claire," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "I can see you're struggling. Please, let me help." She looked up at him, her chest tightening. "I don't need charity, sir. I can take care of myself." He shook his head, his eyes earnest. "I know you can. But this isn't about charity. It's about making sure you're okay." Claire hesitated, her eyes searching his. There was sincerity there, a kindness she hadn't expected, but she still felt unsure, afraid of what accepting help might mean. I don't know, she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded, not pushing her further. Just think about it. I'm here, Claire. As he walked away, she felt her eyes sting with tears. It was too much. The pressure, the fear, the hope. She didn't know if she could keep this up, but she had to try. For Ethan. For herself. Claire arrived at the mansion the next day, her mind weighed down by everything that had happened. She took a deep breath and decided that she couldn't avoid William forever. If he wanted to talk, she had to face it. Running away wasn't an option if she wanted to keep her job. She found herself in the living room, dusting the grand piano. It was just past noon when William entered, his gaze immediately finding her. He looked concerned, his steps hesitant as he approached her. "Claire," he said softly, his voice almost apologetic. She paused, turning to face him. "Yes, sir. Can we talk for a minute?" He motioned to one of the chairs nearby. Claire hesitated, but then nodded, setting down her cleaning cloth. She followed him, sitting across from him, her back straight, her hands resting tensely in her lap. "I don't want to make things difficult for you," he started, his eyes earnest, "but I can see that something is wrong. If I've caused you any trouble," she shook her head quickly. "No, sir. It's not you." He studied her, his expression softening. "You can tell me, Claire. I want to help." She swallowed, looking away. "It's just... things are hard. My son, Ethan, he doesn't have anyone to watch him now, and..." She stopped herself, not wanting to reveal too much. She felt vulnerable, exposed. William leaned forward, his voice low. "I understand. I lost my wife a few years ago." His voice broke slightly, and he paused, taking a breath. "Since then, it's just been me. And I know it's different. But the loneliness, it's hard." Claire looked up, surprised by his honesty. She could see the pain in his eyes, the vulnerability he was showing her. It made her chest tighten. "I just want you to know that you're not alone," he continued, his voice gentle. "If you need help, I'm here." Claire nodded slowly, her throat tight. She wanted to believe him, but trust wasn't something that came easily to her, not after everything. "Thank you, sir," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a small, sad smile. "You're welcome, Claire. Just take care of yourself. And if there's anything I can do, please let me know." She nodded again, her eyes lowering to the floor. She didn't know what else to say. She wanted to run, to leave this room, to escape the emotions that were welling up inside her. After a moment, William stood up. "I'll let you get back to work. Thank you for talking with me." Claire watched him leave, her heart pounding. She felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, hope, confusion. She didn't know what to do with them, how to process the way he had opened up to her. The rest of the day, she noticed the whispers more than usual. The other employees were talking, watching her. It felt like every move she made was being scrutinized. She knew what they were thinking, that she was trying to get close to William for her own gain. It made her sick. She just wanted to do her job, to earn her money honestly. She thought about quitting, about walking away from all of it. But then she thought about Ethan, about the rent that was overdue. And she knew she couldn't. She had to stay. That afternoon, as she was leaving, Richard cornered her in the hallway. "You think you can just ignore my warnings?" he hissed, his eyes narrowing. "Do you think he cares about you?" Claire clenched her jaw, her fists at her sides. "I'm not doing anything wrong." Richard sneered. "You think he's different? He's just another rich man looking for entertainment. You'll be the one who pays the price." Claire felt her eyes sting with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She pushed past him, her heart pounding as she hurried out of the mansion. She needed air, needed space. She couldn't let Richard's words get to her, but they did. They echoed in her mind, making her doubt everything. When she got home, she hugged Ethan tightly, her heart heavy. She had to be strong, for him. She couldn't let anyone intimidate her, couldn't let Richard make her feel small. The next day, William found her in the hallway again. He looked at her, his brow furrowed. "Claire, I've been thinking. I want to help you with Ethan." Claire frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "I know someone who runs a daycare. It's a good place, and I could cover the cost for you." He paused, watching her reaction. Claire felt her chest tighten. She wanted to refuse, to say she didn't need his charity. But the thought of Ethan being in a safe place during the day, of not having to worry about who would watch him, it was tempting. "I don't know, sir," she said quietly. "I don't want to owe anyone anything." William shook his head. "You wouldn't owe me, Claire. It's just a way to make things a little easier." She hesitated, her mind racing. She didn't want to be seen as taking advantage, but she also knew she couldn't keep going like this. "Just think about it," he said, his voice soft. "There's no pressure. I just want to help." Claire nodded slowly, her throat tight. "Okay, I'll think about it." He smiled, a warm smile that made her chest feel a little lighter. "That's all I ask." As he walked away, Claire felt a strange sense of hope. Maybe things could get better. Maybe, just maybe, she could let herself accept a little help, without feeling like she was losing her independence. Claire took a deep breath as she walked into the mansion the next morning. She knew what she had to do. She had spent the entire night thinking about it, and she was done being pushed around. Richard wasn't going to make her life hell any longer. She needed to stand up for herself. She found Richard near the main hall, checking the security cameras. She walked up to him, her heart pounding, but she kept her back straight. "Richard," she said, her voice steady. He turned to her, a smirk forming on his lips. "What is it now?" Claire clenched her hands at her sides, keeping her gaze firm on him. "I need you to stop threatening me. I'm just doing my job, and I'm not doing anything wrong." Richard raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Oh, really? You think talking to the boss like that isn't asking for trouble?" She took a step closer, her voice unwavering. "I've done nothing inappropriate, and you have no right to treat me this way. I'm here to work, just like you. If you have a problem, take it to William." Richard stared at her, his smile fading. For a moment, she thought he might say something else, but instead, he just shook his head and walked away. Claire exhaled slowly, her chest tight. She had done it. She had stood up to him. She knew it wouldn't solve everything, but it was a start. She wasn't going to let herself be intimidated anymore. The rest of the day was tense. She could feel the stares from the other staff members, whispers following her as she moved from room to room. Some of them looked at her with curiosity, others with disdain. She didn't care. She had more important things to worry about. Later that day, William found her in the garden, trimming the roses. He approached her quietly, his expression serious. "Claire," he said, "I heard about what happened with Richard." She looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to cause any trouble." He shook his head. "You have nothing to apologize for. I admire your courage." He paused, his eyes softening. "I want to make sure you're comfortable here, and that you feel safe. Claire swallowed, nodding. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate it." He hesitated, then continued. "I also wanted to talk about what we discussed before. I know you're worried about accepting help, but I'd like to support you, not as charity, but as a way to make things easier for you and Ethan." She looked down, thinking about his words. She had always been proud, always tried to handle things on her own, but maybe it was time to accept that she couldn't do everything alone. "Okay," she said quietly, lifting her eyes to meet his. "But I want to keep things professional. I don't want anyone to think I'm taking advantage." William nodded, a smile forming on his lips. "Of course. I respect that, Claire." From that day forward, their interactions changed. There was a new sense of respect between them, an understanding that went beyond employer and employee. He didn't offer her money or favors anymore, but he found small ways to make her life easier. One afternoon, William brought her a list of local daycares, suggesting one that was nearby and had good reviews. It wasn't an outright offer of money, but it was a gesture that made her feel seen, understood. Claire decided to visit the daycare. She found that it was clean, with a friendly staff and a safe environment. It felt like a place where Ethan could be happy. She decided to enroll him, using the funds she had saved up, along with the small raise William had arranged for her. It wasn't charity. It was her own effort, with a bit of support. As Ethan started going to daycare, Claire felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She could work without constantly worrying about who was taking care of him. It made a difference in her day, a little more breathing room. She began to feel like maybe, just maybe, things could get better. One evening, after work, William asked if she wanted to stay for a cup of tea. She hesitated, but then nodded. They sat in the kitchen, the warmth of the tea and the quiet atmosphere making her feel almost comfortable. "I hope you know," he said, looking at her over the rim of his cup. "I don't see you as just an employee. You're strong, Claire. I see how hard you work for Ethan. It's admirable." She blushed, looking down at her cup. "Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to do my best." He smiled. "You're doing more than that. You're an incredible mother." Claire felt a warmth spread through her chest. She wasn't used to compliments, especially not from someone like him. She looked up, meeting his eyes, and for the first time, she allowed herself to smile back. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a step toward something new. She still didn't know where it would lead, but for now, it was enough. Claire's mornings changed after she enrolled Ethan in daycare. The rush to find someone to take care of him was replaced by a steady routine. She'd wake up early, prepare breakfast for Ethan, get him ready, and walk him to the daycare on her way to the mansion. It felt strange at first, almost too easy, but it was a relief. It gave her some stability. As she walked into the mansion, she no longer felt the same heavy weight pressing down on her. Things were slowly getting better. The other staff still watched her, but she ignored their stares. She was here to work and take care of her son. Nothing more. She was dusting the library when William walked in. He smiled when he saw her. "Claire, how is Ethan liking daycare?" he asked. She looked up, returning his smile. "He loves it, sir." "He's made some friends already." William nodded, his eyes softening. "I'm glad to hear that." He lingered, watching as she continued her work. "I've been thinking," he said after a moment. "I have some things in the storage room that need organizing. I was wondering if you'd help me go through them sometime." Claire paused, her brow furrowed. "Of course, sir. Whenever you'd like." William smiled. "Maybe later this afternoon." She nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "I'll be ready." Later that day, after she had finished her regular tasks, Claire made her way to the storage room. William was already there, a stack of boxes waiting. He looked up as she entered. "Thank you for helping with this," he said, motioning to the boxes. "A lot of these things are from my late wife. I've been meaning to go through them, but it's been hard." Claire nodded, her heart softening. She could understand why it was difficult for him. She watched as he opened a box, pulling out a small, dusty frame. He looked at it for a moment, a faint smile on his lips. "This was from our trip to Italy," he said, showing her the photo. "It was one of the happiest times of my life." Claire looked at the picture, a younger William, smiling with his arm around a woman. They looked happy, carefree. She could see the love in his eyes. "She was beautiful," Claire said softly. William nodded, his gaze lingering on the photo. "She was." They worked together for a while, sorting through the boxes. They didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable. Every now and then, William would share a story about his wife, his voice full of fondness. Claire listened, feeling a connection growing between them. He wasn't just her employer. He was someone who had experienced pain, loss, just like her. When they finished, William looked at her, his expression sincere. "Thank you, Claire. I know this isn't part of your job, but it means a lot to me." She smiled, her heart warming. "It's no trouble, sir. I'm glad I could help." As she walked out of the storage room, she felt a sense of closeness with William that she hadn't before. It wasn't romantic. It was something deeper, a bond forged through shared vulnerability. The following week, William asked her to stay for dinner. Claire hesitated, worried about what the others would think, but she agreed. It was just dinner, after all. They sat in the dining room, the table set with simple but delicious food. William poured them both a glass of water and smiled at her. "I wanted to thank you for everything," he said. "You've brought something into this house that I haven't felt in a long time. Life. It's been a long time since it's felt like a home." Claire looked at him, her heart pounding. She didn't know how to respond. She wasn't used to being appreciated, to having someone see her for more than just what she did. "Thank you, sir," she said finally, her voice soft. "That means a lot." They ate in silence for a few moments. Then William spoke again. "You know, I'd like to get to know Ethan sometime. You've told me so much about him. I feel like I already know him." Claire smiled, her chest tightening. "I think he'd like that. He's always asking about my work, about the people I work for." William smiled, his eyes softening. "Well, maybe we can arrange something. A small get-together. Nothing too formal." Claire nodded, her heart feeling lighter. It felt good to think about Ethan being a part of something more, to think about a future that wasn't so uncertain. The days went by, and the mansion didn't feel as cold as it once had. William found small ways to include her, asking for her opinion on things, sharing stories. It wasn't much, but it made her feel like she was more than just a housekeeper. She felt respected, valued. One afternoon, William called her to his office. He smiled at her, motioning for her to sit. "Claire, I've been thinking. You've been a big part of making this place feel like a home again. I want to make sure you and Ethan are comfortable, that you feel like you're part of something here." Claire frowned, unsure of what he meant. "Sir," he smiled, leaning back in his chair. "I'd like to offer you a raise. And maybe, if it's something you'd consider, a different role. I want you to be comfortable here, to feel like this is a place where you belong." Claire felt her eyes sting with tears. She hadn't expected this. She had been content just doing her work, trying to stay out of trouble. But this offer, it felt like more than just a job. It felt like a chance for a better life. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice shaky. I don't know what to say." William smiled, his eyes warm. "Just think about it, Claire. You deserve it." As she left his office, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. hope. Maybe things really could get better. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, something good. Claire's mornings settled into a comfortable rhythm. She would wake Ethan up, prepare breakfast, and walk him to daycare before heading to the mansion. Her son had grown to love daycare, and every day he would tell her stories about his new friends and what they had learned. It gave her peace of mind, knowing that Ethan was in a safe place while she worked. One afternoon, as she was cleaning the living room, William approached her with a gentle smile. "Claire," he said, "I was thinking, this weekend, why don't you bring Ethan over? I'd love to meet him properly." Claire paused, a mix of emotions flooding her. She smiled, though a hint of nervousness showed. "Are you sure, sir? I mean, he can be a handful." William chuckled. "I'm sure. I think it would be nice for him to see where you work. And I have some things in the garden that might interest a boy his age." She thought about it for a moment and then nodded. "All right. I think he'd like that very much." "Thank you, sir." When she told Ethan that he would be visiting her work, his eyes lit up with excitement. "Will there be toys, Mama?" he asked, bouncing on his feet. Claire laughed softly. "Maybe not toys, but William said there's a garden. You like gardens, right?" Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "I can pick flowers for you, Mama." That Saturday, Claire walked Ethan to the mansion. She held his small hand tightly, her nerves rising as they approached the grand entrance. William was already waiting by the door, smiling warmly as they arrived. "Ethan," William greeted, kneeling to be at eye level with the boy. "I've heard a lot about you." Ethan blinked, a bit shy, and then looked up at Claire before saying, "Hi, sir." William chuckled. "You can call me William, or just Ben if you like." He looked at Claire with a reassuring smile. "Why don't we go see the garden?" The three of them walked to the back of the house, Ethan's eyes wide as he looked around at the mansion. He clung to Claire at first, but as soon as they reached the garden, he pulled away, his curiosity getting the best of him. "Wow." Ethan ran toward a cluster of colorful flowers, his eyes shining with excitement. "Mama, look at these." Claire watched, a smile tugging at her lips. It was rare to see Ethan this happy and carefree. She glanced at William, who was standing beside her, his gaze focused on Ethan with a warmth she hadn't expected. "He's a wonderful boy," William said softly. Claire nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, sir. He's everything to me." They watched Ethan explore the garden, picking flowers and pointing out insects he found interesting. William moved closer to Claire, his voice low. "I want you to know, Claire, that you and Ethan are always welcome here. This house is big, and it's been too quiet for too long." Claire felt her chest tighten, a mix of gratitude and fear. She had grown so used to keeping her distance, to not expecting anything more than a paycheck, but William was offering more, something that felt almost like a family. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice trembling. "It means a lot." William smiled, and they both turned their attention back to Ethan, who was now chasing a butterfly across the lawn. His laughter filled the garden, a sound that made Claire's heart swell. Later, they sat down on a bench near the edge of the garden. William brought out a small plate of sandwiches and juice for Ethan. As they ate, William asked Ethan about daycare, about his friends. The boy answered with enthusiasm, his shyness gone as he warmed up to William. Claire watched them, her heart filled with emotions she couldn't quite name. It felt strange to be sitting there, sharing a meal in such a casual way with her employer. It felt normal in a way she hadn't expected. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Claire decided it was time for them to head home. Ethan, tired from all the running around, held William's hand as they walked back to the front of the house. "Thank you for today, sir," Claire said as they reached the door. "Ethan had a wonderful time." William smiled, his eyes warm. "I did too, Claire. You both are always welcome here." Claire nodded, a tightness forming in her chest. It felt like something had changed today, like a door had opened that she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through. As they left, Ethan waved at William, his small hand flapping in the air. "Bye, Mr. Ben," he called out. William waved back, his smile genuine. "Goodbye, Ethan. Take care of your mom, okay?" Ethan nodded, looking up at Claire with a grin. "Always." On the way home, Claire couldn't stop thinking about the day. She had never imagined William would care about her or her son in this way. It was confusing, and a part of her was still wary. But another part of her, a small, quiet part, felt a sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different, that she didn't have to be alone in this. The next week, the whispers at work continued, but Claire found herself less affected by them. She had seen the sincerity in William's actions, and she knew that whatever people said, it didn't change what she had experienced with Ethan in the garden. William found more reasons to include her in his daily routines. Sometimes, he'd ask her opinion on how to arrange furniture, or he'd bring her tea during her breaks. The closeness between them was growing, but it was gentle, without any pressure. It felt like something that was building slowly, and for the first time, Claire didn't feel scared of what might come next. As the days passed, Claire began to allow herself to imagine a future that wasn't just about survival. Maybe there was room for something more. For Ethan. For herself. For the first time, she let herself dream, even if just a little, about what could be. Claire's routine continued to shift, slowly but surely. Each day felt a little lighter, a little more hopeful. She felt the change not just in herself, but in Ethan too. He was happier, more confident, and Claire knew it was because of the stability they were beginning to build. One day, as she arrived at the mansion, she noticed the way Richard looked at her. His eyes were narrow, his face tight with disapproval. He hadn't said much to her since their last confrontation, but his presence was a constant reminder that not everyone was happy with the changes happening in her life. She moved quickly through her tasks, not wanting to give Richard any reason to confront her again. She knew he disapproved of her relationship with William, whatever it was. He saw her as a threat, an outsider who didn't belong in the mansion. She tried to ignore him, to focus on her work, but it wasn't always easy. That afternoon, William found her in the library. He smiled at her, his eyes softening as they met hers. "Claire, I've been meaning to ask, would you and Ethan like to join me for dinner again this weekend?" Claire hesitated, her heart pounding. She remembered the whispers, the looks from the other staff. She knew what they thought of her, and it made her stomach twist. "Sir, I'm not sure. I don't want to cause any trouble." William frowned, stepping closer. "What do you mean?" Claire looked down, her fingers tightening around the duster she was holding. "People talk, sir. They think I'm taking advantage of you. I don't want to make things difficult for you." He shook his head, his expression hardening. "I don't care what they think. You and Ethan are important to me, Claire. I want you here." Claire felt her throat tighten, tears stinging her eyes. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he meant what he said. But the fear was still there, the fear of being judged, of being hurt again. "I'm scared, sir," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been hurt before, and I don't want Ethan to get hurt either." William reached out, gently touching her arm. "I understand, Claire. I can't promise that everything will be easy, but I can promise that I'll be here for you. For both of you." She looked up at him, her eyes searching his. There was sincerity there, a kindness that made her chest ache. She nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "Okay, we'll come." William smiled, his eyes warming. Thank you, Claire. I'll make sure it's a night you and Ethan will enjoy. As she continued her work that day, Claire couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there. She knew that trusting William was a risk, but it was one she was willing to take. For herself, for Ethan. That weekend, Claire and Ethan arrived at the mansion for dinner. Ethan was excited, his eyes wide as they walked through the grand entrance. William greeted them warmly, his smile genuine as he knelt to greet Ethan. "Ethan, I'm so glad you're here," he said, ruffling the boy's hair. Ethan grinned, holding out a small bouquet of wildflowers. "These are for you, Mr. Ben." William's eyes softened as he took the flowers. "Thank you, Ethan. They're beautiful." They moved to the dining room, where a simple but delicious meal had been prepared. Ethan chatted excitedly about daycare, about his friends and the games they played. William listened intently, asking questions, his focus entirely on the boy. Claire watched them, her heart swelling with emotion. It felt like they were a family, even if just for a moment. After dinner, they moved to the living room. William had set up a small movie for Ethan, something light and funny. Ethan sat on the floor, his eyes glued to the screen, giggling at the cartoon characters. Claire sat on the couch, her body relaxing for the first time in what felt like forever. William sat beside her, his voice low. "You look happier, Claire." "I'm glad." She nodded, her eyes on Ethan. I think we're finally finding some peace. Ethan deserves that." He reached out, his hand brushing hers gently. "You both do." Claire looked at him, her heart pounding. She could feel the fear, the doubt, but she also felt something else. Hope. She squeezed his hand lightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Ben, for everything." William smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "Always, Claire." As the movie ended, Ethan yawned, his eyes drooping. William chuckled, standing up and scooping the boy into his arms. "Looks like someone's ready for bed," he said, his voice soft. Ethan mumbled something incoherent, his head resting on William's shoulder. Claire stood, her heart aching with a mix of emotions. She watched as William carried Ethan to the door, his movements gentle. "Thank you for tonight, sir," she said, her voice trembling. "It means a lot." William looked at her, his expression sincere. "You're always welcome here, Claire." "Both of you." She nodded, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. As they left the mansion, Claire felt a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a new beginning here. Maybe they could be happy. The next day, as she returned to work, she noticed Richard watching her. His eyes were dark, his expression hard. He stepped into her path, blocking her way. "You think you belong here?" he hissed, his voice low and threatening. "You think he cares about you?" Claire clenched her jaw, her heart pounding. She wasn't going to let him intimidate her anymore. She looked him in the eye, her voice steady. "I know he cares, and I belong wherever I choose to be." Richard sneered, his face twisted with anger. "You're making a mistake. He'll drop you as soon as he gets bored." Claire shook her head, her voice firm. "That's not for you to decide." She pushed past him, her heart racing. She knew there would always be people like Richard, people who tried to bring her down, but she also knew that she was stronger than she had ever given herself credit for. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Ethan, and she had William. And for the first time, she felt like she could face whatever came next. Claire's life had started to settle into a new routine, one that was filled with more hope, more laughter, and less fear. Each morning, she would drop Ethan off at daycare and head to the mansion with a lightness in her step that she hadn't felt in years. The other employees still whispered, but their judgment no longer carried the weight it once did. She knew who she was, and she knew what was important: Ethan, her well-being, and the growing bond she shared with William. One Friday afternoon, William approached her while she was tidying up the living room. He had an unusual smile on his face, one that was both excited and nervous. "Claire, I was hoping you could help me with something this weekend," he said, his voice hopeful. Claire looked up from her work, wiping her hands on her apron. "Of course, sir. What do you need?" He hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "I was thinking... I've been meaning to repaint one of the rooms upstairs. It used to be a guest room, but I was hoping to turn it into something more special, a space for Ethan." Claire blinked, taken aback. She hadn't expected this. "For Ethan?" William nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "Yes. I thought it might be nice if he had his own place here. Somewhere he could feel comfortable whenever you bring him over." Claire felt her eyes sting with tears. She hadn't realized how much she wanted something like this until it was offered. A place for Ethan, a place where he could feel at home, where he wouldn't have to feel like an outsider. She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. That's very kind of you, sir. Are you sure?" William smiled, his eyes warm. "I'm very sure, Claire. He's an incredible boy, and I want him to feel like this is a place where he belongs." Claire nodded, her voice trembling. "Okay, I'd love to help." That Saturday, Claire and Ethan arrived at the mansion, both of them excited for the project ahead. William had already gathered all the supplies: paint cans, brushes, rollers, and sheets to protect the floor. Ethan ran around, inspecting everything with wide eyes, his enthusiasm infectious. "What color are we painting, Mama?" Ethan asked, bouncing on his feet. William knelt beside him, holding up a paint swatch. "I was thinking we could do a nice blue, like the sky. What do you think, Ethan?" Ethan's eyes lit up, and he nodded eagerly. "Yes, I want the sky in my room." They worked together all afternoon, the three of them covered in paint splatters, laughing as Ethan attempted to paint the lower part of the walls with a roller. William took charge of the higher areas, while Claire focused on the details, carefully lining the edges and making sure everything was neat. It was messy and it was exhausting, but it was also fun. Claire couldn't remember the last time she had felt so free, so at ease. She watched as William helped Ethan, patiently showing him how to hold the roller properly, his laughter filling the room whenever Ethan made a mistake. It felt right, like they were building something together. Not just a room, but a space where they all belonged. By the time they finished, the room was transformed. The walls were a bright, cheerful blue, and Ethan was beaming with pride. "Look, Mama," he said, pointing to the walls. "We did it." Claire smiled, her heart swelling. "We sure did, sweetheart." William looked at them, his expression filled with warmth. "Thank you both for helping. This room is going to be special. I can feel it." Claire nodded, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you, sir, for everything." He smiled, stepping closer. "You don't need to thank me, Claire. I'm just glad you're here." After they cleaned up, William brought out a small box from the corner of the room. He opened it, revealing a set of bedding with stars and clouds printed on it. He knelt beside Ethan, handing him one of the pillowcases. "I thought you might like this for your new room," he said softly. Ethan's eyes widened, and he took the pillowcase, hugging it to his chest. "Thank you, Mr. Ben." William ruffled his hair, his smile widening. "You're very welcome, Ethan." As they prepared to leave that evening, Claire felt a strange mix of emotions: gratitude, hope, and something deeper. Something that scared her but also made her heart swell. She looked at William, her voice soft. "Thank you, Ben. Not just for today, but for everything. You've given us more than I ever thought possible." He stepped closer, his gaze locking on hers. "Claire, you and Ethan have given me something too. You've brought life back into this house, into my life. I want you to know that this is your home, whenever you need it." Claire swallowed, her heart pounding. She had always been so careful, so guarded. But in that moment, she knew she had to take a leap of faith. She reached out, her fingers brushing his. Maybe we could try to make this a home together," she said, her voice trembling. William's eyes softened, and he took her hand, holding it gently. "I'd like that very much, Claire." As they left the mansion that night, Claire felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She looked down at Ethan, who was holding the pillowcase tightly, his eyes drooping with exhaustion. She knew that their journey was far from over, that there would still be challenges ahead. But for the first time, she felt like they weren't alone. They had each other, and they had William. As they walked down the driveway, Ethan looked up at her, his voice sleepy. "Mama, can we come back tomorrow?" Claire smiled, her heart full. "Yes, sweetheart, we'll come back tomorrow. We have a lot to build here." And with that, they walked into the night, ready to face whatever came next, together.